Hey everyone, it's Peter from Daydream Nation, and I've got Angie Moon back to the channel. How's it going, Angie?
Doing well. Yeah, it's been pretty hectic here, but rock and roll's here, just keeping me sane, as
Fantastic.
always.
Well, it's keeping me sane too. Today's show, a little bit of a different angle. It's going to be a first time listen for me. Now, I've got a confession to make, Angie. I'm very unfamiliar with the Moody Blues. A lot of people will say, how can this be? Um, I'm familiar with the hits like Nights and White Satin. I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band, the big hits. But other than that, nada, not much at all. And when we were having a chat about future show ideas, you recommended this album called To Our Children's Children from 1968. Bought the CD about 5 weeks ago. Been listening to it sort of ferociously, and today's show is we're just going to have a bit of a yak about the album, go through the tracks, and I'll tell you what I think, and you can weave your opinions of the album because I know this is a pretty special album to you and the Moody
Oh
Blues
yeah.
per se. They're one of your favorite classic rock bands, I believe.
Oh, definitely one of the best in prog rock, in my opinion. And I know some people might go, "Are they really prog rock?" And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely." I mean, they had the concept albums, a lot of classical influences, bits of poetry in there. Definitely very much like a thinking person's rock band, if you will.
Very symphonic, very dense songs, isn't it? Like my limited exposure with Knights of White Satin and that other, I'm just a singer in a rock and roll band. You can hear that every track, it's just so much texture and layered. But let's talk about this album. So I'll put it up. The album cover is quite strange. It's kind of like, is it Michelangelo or somebody doing a
Yeah,
drawing
it looks like
about
a caveman's painting, like a
yeah,
caveman, I'd say.
like
Yeah, and it's
about
just
humanity?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Like it's just incredible. Like I think that's what I love about the 20th century is it's a century of change.
yeah.
And like we started off with just, plane travel like being a thing in the 1900s. Like that was new, the whole Kitty Hawk, North Carolina thing with the Wright brothers. And, people just taking flights further and further, first Atlantic flight, Lindbergh, stuff like that. And then space travel in like the 50s and 60s, the whole space race, that was something that really defined the 60s. And it's no surprise to see it being talked about in rock and roll.
So the inspiration for this album, and this is a concept album, was First Man on the Moon. So this whole album is about space travel, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, it was just a huge thing. I mean, like a lot of people will say there's like two things that really kind of were defining moments or like first moments for like the boomers, like kind of like how for the millennials it was 9/11. For the boomers, it was two things, the JFK assassination and the moon landing.
Yeah.
JFK assassination more if you're American, but moon landing was very universal.
I'm a little bit older than you, but I do have a vague memory of a wooden box TV and me pointing at it to my mum and say, that mum, man's on the moon. This album is very much of its time because there can be an interpretation about mind bending, acid, drugs, psychedelia. There's that element as well. One of the members of this band was very much, I wouldn't say a cohort, but very sympathetic to Timothy Leary, who was very much
Hmm.
into acid, LSD. So there's also this sort of element to Moody Blues, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, regarding um, the drug scene and that
Oh,
psychedelia,
absolutely.
and it's kind of that's the feel I get in this album. Not only it's you could take it as a straight concept album of man going into space, but there's this also psychedelia type of element.
Yeah, I think like one thing I just love about the 60s, and I think what makes it so special to me is just the optimism and the hope throughout the decade. Even if there was a lot of turmoil and turbulence with all the wars and assassinations, there was just a lot of hope because of technology and space and, civil rights and women's liberation.
Do you think this album was influenced by Stanley Kubrick's 2001? Because I was looking at the timing and it would have come after 2001. And I remember the poster
Yeah.
of 2001, enjoy the trip. Or no, I don't know if that's the actual catchphrase. Look, a lot of viewers will correct me, but it was something along enjoy the space, enjoy the trip. Kind of, they put the angle, it was like a mind-bending trip. Do you think that might have had a little bit of an influence?
I think so. That now that I think about it, yeah. Like I could definitely see that being a huge influence on them. I mean, a lot of rock stars are very much movie buffs.
Yeah. And then you had Bowie with Major Tom, but I think in chronological, that probably came after this album. So there was a lot
Yeah.
of that sort of, um,
Space Oddity actually came out like it was rush released for the moon landing. Like Bowie had it rush released for it.
right. So you think that might have been in the timing around this album?
Yeah, because it says on Wikipedia that it was recorded between May and September of 1969. Bowie's came out in July. Space Oddity came out in July. So yeah, I mean, they could have been very well listening to that and knowing that was
Yeah.
there, and that probably helped
Yeah.
shape the direction of the album.
I think this is important to just sort of discuss this at the start before we get into the album, because I think this is all contextual. I think it does sort of there is a bit of an influence on the album with what was happening in popular culture. Everything was about the space race. I think we've got to look at that. So, okay, well, Moody Blues, why don't we talk about the songs? The first one is Higher and Higher. And this is a bit of an unusual opening, Angie, because you've actually got Mike Pinder that speaks the lyrics. Yeah, I'll throw it over to you. What do you think of this song? And then I'll tell you my views.
So yeah, one of the signatures of the Moody Blues, for those who aren't initiated, is that they incorporate a lot of poetry in their lyrics, and that is Graham Edge doing all the poetry. And he's not the one speaking his own poetry here. It's Mike Pinder doing it instead. But I think it's just such a great way to open an album. It's just so different. And I think I like things that are different and, challenging the norms. And like, just for me, like, this is just the epitome of rock and roll poetry right here.
Yeah, it certainly gives you a lot of a bit of a feel of urgency, like the sound of the rocket launching, and then you've got the echo of the choir, a little bit of organ. I like how I think it's a great start to the album that he's actually speaking the lyrics, because it gives this sort of sense that you're listening to something quite important.
Oh
I
yeah.
guess a lot of critics would say pretentious, but I like it. It's something a little bit different, and I'm not used to, because, as I said, this is a first time listener. And apparently this was written about Neil Armstrong, landed on the moon. It's got a lot of stream of consciousness lyrics, reaching for the sky and achieving the possible. So, but it's a great start. And is this a typical sounding Moody Blues song? Because you've got a bit more knowledge about Moody
Definitely.
Blondes.
Yeah, it has that definitely signature Moody Blues, like that, just the poetry like in there. I think that's just one of the great things. Like if you're not much of a poetry fan, I'm like I think you'll become one with the Moody Blues for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Pink Floyd
It's just
first
so
album. Pink Floyd
yeah.
first album. Is that similar in with this one? I hear a little bit of Pink Floyd first album.
Like Piper. Could definitely see that.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Interstellar, maybe? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Like
Yeah.
it is kind of space rock, but not so much in sound, but in theme.
Yeah, yeah. All right, the next one is Eyes of a Child 1. So a lot of harp in this. It's a lot
Yes.
getting the harp and just going like that.
Yep. I just love the sound of a harp. It does sound angelic, and I think what I love about this is I think one of the things that makes the 60s just so magical again is just the love of just I think it's just the whole youthful vibe of the era, that it was very much celebrating youth. I mean, rock and roll, it's a very youthful genre. And like, yeah, I know there's definitely criticisms of it from, people who are past that age, but I think it's just something fresh. And I think that's why rock and roll is just so special, is it's just so fresh, the youth, just that childlike wonder. And I don't think, like, just because you're older in age doesn't mean you lose that. I think you can still have that in you. And I think these are just such beautiful lyrics.
I like the musical arrangement, how it's got a bit of woodwind, it's got the acoustic, and then the angelic harp flourishes. It's very ethereal, floating. And I just love reading the social comments on YouTube with the various tracks because I like reading other people's comments. And there's a lot of people that say, in the day, I just got so stoned listening to this album and just passed out, and it's put on the headphones. So this is a very much I think a very transcendental album for a lot of people who are into that sort of thing. But anyway,
Yeah, imagine. I just like thinking, imagine like Thoreau listening to this. That'd be
yeah,
crazy.
absolutely. Well, the next one's a floating. So this is really continues the concept of space travel. Um, I I had that it's got kind of a slight folky feel, and it reminds me of that old Australian band, The Seekers. I don't know why,
I
but
can see that. I could definitely see that, like a bit of Georgie Girl or something. Yeah.
yes, slight. What do you think of this song?
I love how everything just segues into each other. I think that's what I love about the Moody Blues. That's what I love about like Pink Floyd, Dark Side of the Moon, like how we spoke about that. I just love how it all segues together. It's just all one piece. And you shouldn't listen to it on shuffle because it is an experience. This album is an experience, much like Dark Side of the Moon's an experience. It's just, this is such an underrated experience. And I think Floating is just a great way to bridge between the two Eyes of a Child and that kind of motif of that, and how the whole Eyes of a Child, that whole idea is kind of echoed throughout the album.
Yeah, absolutely. Eyes of a Child, the innocence, and basically maybe it's saying that man was kind of innocent. You know, they were like innocents going into space. What's out there? What's beyond? It's like that. You know, they didn't know. Landing on the moon, it could have gone horribly wrong. Space travel, it's just infinite. You know, and I think this whole concept, Eyes of the Child, those astronauts were like children, weren't they? Because they were exploring space and they were completely new. It was just like a whole new experience. But a lot of folks do say that there's a lot of allegories with Timothy Leary on this song. You know, there's an allegory with drug use. So I guess it depends what side of the ledger. Do you take it as a straight concept album, or you look at it on the other side that it's a psychedelic
I think
drug
it's
type?
both. But I think you really hear the Timothy Leary stuff on a later track that we'll get to.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you got Eyes of a Child Part Two. This is even more upbeat. What do you think of this song?
Yeah, I think it just reminds me of just like how people are just, okay, here they are, the astronauts are in space, and it's getting faster and faster, like the Earth is getting smaller and smaller, and then here you are getting to the moon, and just in space, I mean, we think of things like on the Earth, like what's a long distance on Earth is not a long distance in space.
Yeah, and
It's
I totally
whole different
agree.
units out there.
I totally agree. Don't listen to this on YouTube, or you've got to listen to the whole CD because, I mean, this track only goes to 1 minute 20, and there's nothing worse when there's a space in between. It should segue all the way through to get the perfect experience. And doing a shuffle, oh, it'd be terrible. You really got to hear it from start to finish. I read that they were never able to replicate this live.
You
They,
can't. You just
no.
can't. There's too many, like, it's a studio album, much like a lot of the Beatles' later stuff, like Sergeant Pepper. Like, that is truly a studio album, or like the song It's All Too Much. That's one of my favorite Beatles songs of all time. But you couldn't play that live. I mean, the only way you could do it is you have to really strip it down. And even then, I'm like, I don't know if it would still have that same magic stripped down as much as I love the Beatles.
So that probably inhibited its commercial success because they couldn't take it out on the road. So this is very much a studio project. But yeah, I was surprised they were never able to play this live. They may have played one or two tracks later in their career, but the majority of the songs on this album they just couldn't play live. I never thought I'd live to be 100. Love this song. What's your view? And I'll come back and tell you why.
I think like when I was a kid, that was something that I wanted. I wanted to live to 100, and then like as you go on through life, like or at least when went on through life, I'm like, whoa, this is too much. And that's kind of like how I'm feeling, like, whoa. Like I never thought I'd ever have my freedom. An age ago, my maker was refusing me the pleasure of like these are just such profound lyrics.
Justin Hayward. I think this is the most intimate because Moodies do get criticised for bombast, don't they? And this is a song where the bombast has been removed. It's kind of a bit more minimalist. The vocals are very close to the microphone, and I like it how it's much more of an intimate song, and it's that whole sort of aging in space, the aging process in space. Like 1 second could be equivalent to like 1,000 years. What was that science
Yeah.
fiction movie, Interstellar? The one.
Interstellar. And then the funniest thing is that that came out 39 years after Queen's album Night at the Opera. And then what song had the same plot as as Interstellar? That was 39. And that was Brian May writing about like, okay, you're going out in space, then you come back and you're like, wait, all the people I know are dead. And like it's like, whoa.
But yeah, the whole aging process in space, I think they really deal with this beautifully.
Yep.
Next song is a perfect soundtrack song. I can imagine this would be like, I don't know if it's like a Jerry Anderson Thunderbirds movie, but I don't know. I really have this visual of some retro science fiction sort of movie, Beyond. It's got a real
Yeah, it's
sort of
just
60s
you feel like
vibe.
kind of flashes and you're going through this tunnel. It reminds me of like
Yeah,
those old screensavers on the computer of like flying through space. That's what I see, but then I see flashes of color
yeah.
and just kind of maybe flashes of different memories too, because I think this is a lot about the human experience, and I could just see like a lot of just, okay, here are all the different memories from your life floating around, and you almost feel a Wizard of Oz like vibe in that almost.
I love the Mellotron. I really do. There's so much Mellotron on this album, folks. If you love Mellotron, it's dripping in Mellotron all the way through. And I was just talking to Angie off camera, and I basically said I think King Crimson and a lot of those other acts must have heard this and thought, we want to have some of that. Is that typical of Moody's sound? As I said, I'm not really familiar with Moody
Late
Blues.
60s? I think so. I think, yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Like I think this is just very Moody Blues. Like this, I think is just so Moody Blues.
yeah. You put the headphones on, Angie, and this one really is an experience because the sound's going one ear to the other. It's like someone's got the dial and they're going choo, choo,
It's
choo.
like, yeah, I mean, like the Beatles did that, and I think that's just what I love.
Yeah, yeah. It's a haunting, beautiful instrumental, and it's kind of a mini symphony in under 3 minutes. So it's a great one. All right. Moving to the last track on side one, Out and In. What do you think of this one?
This is my favorite on the album. This is my absolute favorite. The lyrics are incredible. I am like, this is the song that I'm like, this may sound morbid to say it, but I'm like, play this at my funeral. Just play it at my funeral. This is amazing. Like, this is an absolute masterpiece. I mean, I had just such an obsession with space when I was a child. There was this like computer game that I used to play, and it had this science section, and I loved the rocks. I loved the little color mixing with the carnations. And then, but my absolute favorite thing was the space and learning about the planets. And back then, Pluto was a planet. And I was just so sad when Pluto was like not a planet anymore. I was just
It
so
is a
sad at those
planet.
news.
It is I know scientifically it's not, but to you and I, it's still a
It'll
planet.
always be a planet. Like Pluto will always mean a lot to me.
Absolutely.
I just love this song. Like, and this is where I think the Timothy Leary stuff is all over this. It's all over this song right here, Out and In. Like, there's a bit of space, but I think there's a bit of like kind of that psychedelic trip, and it does make me think of the time I was on mushrooms in California. It was amazing. Like, I'm like, this
Yeah.
is just a life-changing thing. Like going to a whole nother world, and
Yeah.
that's an experience I want to have again. And it's just so sad because of how authoritarian governments can be that they control you from accessing certain things. It bothers me. It's
So
all
this
about freedom to me.
so this is this
Freedom.
is this is less space travel, but more mind travel. I think this song is
Astral projecting.
Astro Predicting. Oh, it's such a textured mid-tempo pop song. It's lush. It's got mellotron, and I love those bendy little strings, the accompaniment. That it's hauntingly beautiful. It's a great finish to the album. And Mike Pinder, he's the key, is he? He's the key guy, isn't he? Mike Pinder, would that be fair to say? He's the main man.
I think Justin Hayward just because he's the front man, but I think they're
Yeah,
all like really important. Like I do like to just, give credit to all the different band members. I think that's just really important in every band because there are some of everybody in it.
yeah, some of all parts. All right. So, side two, Gypsy of a Strange and Distant Time. Bit of a mouthful title. Again, this is a Mike Pinder masterclass, orchestral pop, lots of drama, lush arrangements. What do you think of this one?
This one I think was the most successful track on the album, and I think this is also another great song. Like I think I just love like the horns and then just kind of the intensity of that. It's definitely got that kind of, symphonic feel. And I think definitely the Moody Blues were definitely like kind of pioneers in that symphonic rock genre, like long before ELO were doing it.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Um,
Also a fellow Birmingham band, they're both from Birmingham. Like it's just incredible to me how many great music just comes out of Birmingham.
yeah, although Jeff Lynne, I think he was obsessed with Magical Mystery Tour, I Am a Walrus. You know how the
Hmm.
Beatles were getting into the George Martin strings. I think Jeff Lynne was very obsessed with that. But that's not to say he had his ear and he was, oh, okay, the Moodies are doing that. So there might have been some sort of
Yeah.
influence.
Oh, I think it's just great. Like I think it's just sometimes I think with art, like a lot of it is up to us, the listeners. It's up to us to kind of make the connections too. And sometimes those musicians, they hear our thoughts and they're like, huh, never thought of it that way. I think that's why everybody's got something to contribute in rock and roll.
Yeah. I don't think it's too out of the wheelhouse of Knights and White Satin. It feels a little bit like a sped up Knights and White Satin. And another thing I feel, it's got like a spaghetti Western type feel
Hmm.
to it. I think any time you've got strings and mellotron and that sort of bendy guitar, for some reason in my head, I get a bit of a Morricone type feel about it.
Hmm.
I don't know. Is that a bit out of school?
I think it could be like a very cinematic sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely cinematic.
Like I think of the Moody Blues, like I think of any rock band that I wish could have done like a Fantasia soundtrack. I think the Moody Blues were just made for Fantasia.
Yeah,
Like I may sound like a might sound funny just like me being a Disney adult over here, but I'm like, yeah, the Moody Blues, they should have done a soundtrack for a Fantasia because it would have been incredible. Just a Fantasia like 1960s. I think I could have seen just Disney doing animations for this.
yeah, and it's got some really unusual time signatures. It's not a, so you say this was the biggest hit off the album. It's a very unusual song, but it really works. It works really well. Um, Eternity Road. This is a very profound song. What do you think of this one?
Yeah, just I think it's very old-fashioned with the hark, listen, here he comes. And then just it does have that kind of somber feel to it.
I think it discusses God and the universe, and I
Mm.
think there's a couple of folk in the band I've read that are quite religious, so maybe that's that element. You've got all these different
Hmm.
personalities in the band contributing. Um, Again, the mellotron, it's sort of, has so much weight and texture to it. We've got to talk about Justin Hayward's guitar work. He's a fine guitarist, and the Moodies started off as a beat group.
Yep,
So
with Jenny Lane.
their progression from beat group into something that's sort of mind bending, expansive, and this orchestral pop is just, it's a bit of
I
a
think that's
change.
just they followed a lot of the same paths as like all the 60s rock bands did. They all started off with these R&B roots and putting their own spin on American music. And then they all found themselves and did their own thing in their own way and found their signature. And I think that's really where they came of age and really became themselves.
We should do a future show, bookmark. Did Sergeant Pepper and Pet Sounds change everything? Do you think, like, if there wasn't a Sergeant Pepper or Pet Sounds, we wouldn't have had an album like this? Because, you know, pop will eat itself, and when you've got an album that does all this expansive different orchestration and arrangements and signatures, um, people sort of borrow that and steal it. And I don't know, I mean, because this is such an inventive album, and it's just like they've got a blank canvas and they're just doing anything. You know what I mean? And that
Hmm.
symphonic pop, it's got to have one ear on the Beatles, wouldn't you say, Sergeant
Oh
Pepper?
yeah, definitely. Like I just think of A Day in the Life with all the like kind of that almost orchestral, but it's like very intense. It's not like a gentle kind of classical. It's like this huge sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Candle of Life. What do you think of this one?
This one is not as memorable to me as the others, but it's still a good track.
Yeah, why is it not memorable?
I think it's just it had such a strong first side. Like that first side is just so strong. Like from higher to higher, Eyes of a Child, and then out and in. I think it's hard to top that.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very sort of dark lyrics on this. It talks about
Yeah.
loneliness and the metaphor of the candle that's burning. Um, and maybe this is about the interstellar travel and, like time is ticking, because there,
The
there is
loneliness.
there is an element of time on this album, isn't it? You know how we were talking about Dark Side of the Moon,
Pink
about
Floyd.
time?
Yeah.
I get a feel that there's a timing element on this album as well.
Hmm.
Sun is still shining. Ah, the old sitar comes out. I mean,
Yeah.
not knowing this album, I was just thinking, okay, got the headphones on. When's the sitar coming out? It's got to come out eventually, because I'm just thinking late 60s band, orchestral, psychedelia. There's got to be a sitar song, and here it is.
Yep. It's like obligatory. I mean, every rock band was kind of doing the sitar thing in the 60s. And recently I was on a podcast and the person, she dedicated herself to just like finding all the different electric sitar songs and seeing how the sitar really was just a far-reaching instrument and a uniter really of all these different cultures. And I think that's like one of the coolest things about the 60s is the love for India in everything, like whether it was a fashion or the music. I think it's just such a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Where do you sit on this song?
Yeah, I think there's just it's always used so well in rock and roll. Maybe that's just me being a big sitar fan, but I just love the way it sounds in a rock song. I just love
You
it.
you like this song, do you?
Yeah, like I like everything on the album. I think this is
Yeah.
one of those albums where everything is good.
Yeah, I think this is even beyond Indian. It's got the Egypto chords. It's kind of, to me, I'd say Middle Eastern. I hear a lot of
Hmm.
that. Mike Pinder's vocals are very calming, and it's like he's luring you in, and it's like he's navigating you via the lyrics on a journey,
Mm.
taking you on a trip. It's a very spiritual kind of meditation type of song. Then 34 seconds, these little segue things, and this would be terrible if you're on shuffle because you'd hear it and you go, what the hell's happening here? I'd never thought I'd live to be a million. So here we go, time travel. Um, Obviously, this is a sequel to Living to 100. So any comments on that? Just other than it's just a sequel?
Yeah, I think it's just a like keeping up with that theme. It's just to tie it all together and like that's really showing how this is a concept album.
Yeah. And then we've got the finale, Watching and Waiting.
This is where it
So
all comes together.
yep, absolutely. Meeting your maker, the heaven utopia. Um, it's like the end of the black hole, going into the other, end of 2001. What do you think of this song? Does that
Yeah,
tie it
I
up
think
nicely for you?
yeah, definitely.
Any comments on this one?
I don't know. Like I think it's just a good way to finish the album.
Yeah. All right. So it's all the elements are here. It's haunting. It's lush. It's layered. And that's the end of the album. It's a concept album. So I
I
like it.
think
I
it's
like
just
this
a
album a lot.
yeah, it's a great summary of what the 60s were all about. Just that optimism at the beginning and then just kind of that crash at the end.
Yeah. So do you think the
The tragic.
optimism kind of wears out as it goes
Yep.
on?
Yeah, because I think like that's how the 60s kind of went. And this is almost like a summary of the 60s. Like you ended like the 60s, when did it culturally end? It was with Altamont and it was with well, it wasn't in the 1960s. I mean, the breakup of the Beatles and then Kent State. Those were all just kind of a cultural end. And then it was on to something else with the 70s.
So, Angie Moon, how would this album rate in the discography of the Moody Blues, just for new viewers and new listeners like myself?
S tier. I definitely think this is one of their best. Definitely, probably one of the best albums of the year of 1969. I definitely think it's very high up there. I have a friend on Instagram who absolutely adores this album, and every time I share tracks from it, he's always like, "This is so great. Yeah, it's such a masterpiece. I love it."
Yeah. And any other albums in the discography that you would recommend to viewers that they should check
Days of
out?
Future Past. Days of Future Past is really good. That's the one that I think is the most Fantasia-esque, just kind of the day, and it's very much almost I'd almost describe it as a precursor to this one because it's focusing on the day and just people's life. Well, this is just going beyond that, and I feel like those are kind of connected in a way.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much more to it than Nights in White Satin. I remember coming across this album when I was at a radio station, working at the radio station in Chicago, and they said, play other songs besides Nights in White Satin. And I'm like, they're absolutely right. It's a great song, but there's just
Yeah.
so much more to it than that. And I think a lot of times the radio does people a disservice by playing the single version of it and not the full version.
Oh, yeah. That's an amazing song, and you got to hear the full version. Have you followed the Moody's career right into the 80s, or were you sort of the 70s?
60s.
That's it for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, because I don't really pay as much attention to their 70s stuff as much. They have a couple good stuff here and there. Like, I like Question, like that song. Very, very good. I love that guitar. And I remember reading something about how that inspired Heart's Crazy on You, kind of that guitar that Nancy Wilson was playing in that song.
Yeah. And there's another little anecdote you want to share. This album was groundbreaking in a particular country.
Yes, China. So yeah, China definitely not a country that a lot of people would associate with rock and roll. I mean, it was very closed off, very insular because of, the communist government. And there, as part of like kind of ping pong diplomacy, there was a ping pong player that's flew to China to play ping pong. And he stopped over in Singapore, bought this album, To Our Children's Children, and played it in China while playing ping pong. And that was Chinese people's first exposure to rock and roll. And I'm like, what an interesting way to introduce it to them because it wasn't the Beatles, it wasn't Elvis, it was the Moody Blues. I find
Mm,
that just so fascinating. It's
yeah,
just shows how music brings us all together.
it does. It does. Yeah. Now, the title of this album is called To Our Children's Children. Do you think this band had high hopes that this was going to be a groundbreaking, generation breaking album that would pass on? Didn't
I
quite
hope
work
it
out that way, did it, really?
I hope it does. I mean, it's just so great. And I think the timing of it, of how we're talking about it now, I mean, these guys are old enough to be great grandparents. So I'm
Mm,
wondering, what that generation thinks, like that Gen Z, the Gen Alpha. What will Gen Alpha think of this?
yeah. But I think they were they talking about in the title about their intention about this album, music, or were they more talking about the concept of space travel being
Maybe it was
groundbreaking? I don't
maybe it
know,
was
two
something that was
levels.
more abstract and more metaphorical about space. I think that's probably what it was and not something so literal, because I think a lot of rock and roll isn't very literal.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic talking to you. We will talk offline and find out another album that we will cover. Angie, tell us what you think of this Moody Blues album, favorite songs. Recommend some other albums. We love reading your comments. Angie's on a lot of different channels. I'll put the links below. But one thing's for sure, you'll see me and Angie doing more classic rock in 2025 and beyond. See you later and all the best. Cheers. See ya.